you know you used to be fun? Well, thanks everyone for coming. It's so great to see everyone. And we are so honored to have Wyatt here today. I'll thank you again, Wyatt, for coming. And yeah, I'll just go into my first question here. When did you first decide you wanted to be an actor?
My mom says it was about when I was 5 years old or so. We lived in Chicago where I was born, and I guess I asked her one day if I could become like an actor, and she was like, no, because we live in Chicago and we have no connections to the industry. And eventually, I guess when I was 7, we moved out to LA. I kept asking whatever, and she finally was like, fine, we'll just try it. And we got a few lucky connections, and I got to start auditioning and whatever, and it just kind of went on from there. So yeah.
And can you remember like first role you did or maybe a first audition or anything?
My first role was like a commercial for Coldwell Banker, and I don't think I had any lines. I had lines in the audition, but they didn't. They just took them out before we started filming. So yeah, that was fun. And first audition, I don't really remember, but that I remember that audition. I remember in that the Coldwell Banker audition, they were like, "Oh, we really can you do this and can you do that?" And I did stuff, and I was like, "Mom, I think they liked me for it. Hopefully, we hear something back." And so yeah, that was that first role, and it felt really good getting that.
Well, I saw your Doritos commercial on
Right.
IMDb.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was great. What was it
Thank you.
like being on set for the first time for you?
Yeah. That one was like interesting because I think it was like through a real casting office, but like they were doing that was like for a Doritos commercial competition thing for like the Super Bowl. We didn't win, but I think we got a high place or whatever. Um, and that one was fun. That one was cool. I got to wear a wire for the first time. They like dragged me across the ground and stuff. Um, and I was on set for a while, so it was like my first like big day of working, and I was the focal point of that commercial, and it was like, oh, this is so cool, and it was in like someone's backyard and whatever, and it was a really fun experience.
And do you know how long they're allowed to work with kid actors? Is that's less hours, right? Then
Yeah, with adults you can work as many as you need, like unlimited hours, but kids, it depends on the age, I believe, and also the location where you're filming, what state, what country, all that. So it changes. I don't know the exact hours, but I turn 18 in 2 months, so it doesn't matter.
yay.
Yeah.
And what does it feel like with all the cast and the crew like around like while you're acting? Is it intimidating or you not really notice them or?
Um, my goal is to not really notice them. Yeah, like I try not to think about it too much. I'm just thinking about my performance and what I want to do with it and saying the lines and communicating with the person in the scene. Um, Usually it's easier when you're like not facing the crew or whatever. Sometimes obviously you have to because that's where the camera is.
Mhm.
But sometimes you'll just be filming a scene and a guy will just have the camera on his shoulder and the rest of the crew is wherever else. So it's easier to kind of immerse yourself in that location. But yeah.
And obviously chemistry is a huge part of like acting in a scene with someone. So what's it like building like chemistry with someone?
I've had no bad cast members so far, which I'm really grateful for. I've had some great people to work with, and especially like if you're working with someone again, which I did with Sophia for the Netflix show, and like working with someone that you're already comfortable with makes it so much easier to act with them because you know their style and you hang out with them all the time, so you're super comfortable doing whatever, and you both have like a mutual understanding of how the other person does their work. So um, that's super fun. But building chemistry for the first time may take a little bit. Sometimes directors like to introduce the cast to each other before they start filming, which was vital for like it. We did that. We had like cast bonding experiences for the first 2 weeks before we started filming. So that friendship that we had was super real and authentic. So yeah.
And speaking of it, do you remember what the audition process was like for that?
Yeah, I do actually. I went to this casting office, which has been great. I've been there, I've been back there a few times, and every time it's uh, they're really great there. And yeah, they originally had me go in for Bill, which is Jaden's character, and I did good, I think, because they wanted me back to try out for Stanley. So I think they did that for a few of the cast members, was switch around who they were auditioning for. So pretty much everyone originally auditioned for Bill, and then they kind of mix and matched everyone. And yeah, so I went back the second time for Stanley, and then the director Andy Muschietti was in town, and he wanted to do like a meeting with, or like a director session audition, and I was like leaving to go film Guardians 2, which was like 2 shots. I was going to be there for like a few days, but like I was going to miss the audition, and luckily we fit it in before the flight, and I was able to meet him, which I think kind of secured me that part. Thank God.
And how many like different people do you have to audition in front of before getting a part?
It depends. Sometimes you'll go from a regular call or regular audition to a callback, then to a producer session, and then to a director session. Um, but or sometimes it's just uh, an audition and a callback, and then you get it. Or sometimes it's an audition and you get it. It really depends on the project and what they're looking for. If they think you are the thing they're looking for, then they will snatch you right up, and they don't really need to see more of you. But typically, they like to play it safe and see like, can this person consistently do this kind of acting, or was this like a one-off kind of thing?
Hmm. And I'm going to stray a bit from it for a moment here.
Sure.
But can you remember the hardest audition that you've ever done? Like, do you have a story?
Yeah. Hardest. I feel like one I did for Scorpion, which was like this TV show. I had to do a lot of crying, which was fun. So like before I went into the audition, my mom and I were like, my mom's super good at helping me cry, which doesn't sound good, but it's very helpful. Um, so we were prepared, and I went in and I was like already like pretty much sobbing. And the casting people, normally they're like, okay, can you do like a slate first to be like, hi, my name's Wyatt Oleff, I'm 17 years old, blah blah blah, I'm with whatever agency. But they
Mhm.
were like, let's just save the slate till after, because I'm already crying, I'm ready for the scene, whatever, that kind of stuff. And then the second one was also, because crying is hard, but for me, at least at this stage of my life, um, the other one I cried for twice was Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. um, so I did 2 auditions for that. I did one audition for Scorpion, and then I got the part, and then I did 2 for Guardians, crying twice, and I secured that part as well. But it was just like, it was a lot. It's like you have to really make yourself emotionally vulnerable and willing to just break down in front of complete strangers, which is something most people don't do, I think. Or I mean, that no, I mean sometimes, but maybe not in that kind of scenario.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And moving back to it for a second here,
yeah.
you said on Instagram that you read the book before playing the role. And did you see the miniseries prior to the movie? And did either of those impact your performance at all? Or
I never finished the book. I got through the first 60 to 100 pages, and then I got busy hanging out with my friends, I think. It
yeah.
was just like, I was reading it like while I was on set. I was like, oh, I'm so excited to read it. And then I'm not really much of a reader right
Hmm.
now. I only really read for school. So that's a big book too. I have a few copies of the book, so eventually I'll read it. But yeah, I didn't get to finish it. But the mini series I did watch, um, and that was helpful material. I was kind of scared of watching it because I didn't want to um, develop my performance and my understanding of what the director wanted off of the miniseries, because that's an adaptation, and what we were doing was not a remake of the miniseries, but an adaptation of the book. So I didn't want to skew um, my image of what I was doing, but I think it was very helpful to understand, because obviously I didn't read the book. So having that as some sort of source material was very helpful.
And how else did you prepare for the role, and like how much time did you have before having to jump into filming?
I had, I want to say like a month and a half or so before in between the time I got the role and when we started shooting, um, or when I went to Toronto, which then I bonded with everyone for 2 weeks during those exercises and whatever, and then after that we started filming officially. So there was that. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And I watched a documentary on it, and it talked about the rehearsal process before actually filming it. And
Mhm.
what was that like? And how did you get to bond? Like you talked about the bonding experiences. What was that
Yeah. I haven't seen the documentary. Which one is that?
It's just some, I think it's called like Summer of It or something. It talks about like the summer filming it. Yeah,
Oh
interesting.
yeah, I remember hearing about that one because one of the guys behind the scenes was like filming us because he wanted to do like a Stand By Me kind of thing where he's like documenting, just our friendship and that
Mhm.
experience of all being together that summer. But I should watch that. But um, sorry, back to the original question, which was,
You want me to ask it again? I can ask
yeah,
it.
I'm so sorry.
That's fine. Like what was the rehearsal process like before going into it, like bonding with each other, that type of deal?
Yeah, that was. It's really weird how well you get to know someone from just being like forced into like just doing stuff with them. Like, you'll get really familiar with a coworker or, well, in my case, a coworker, but or castmate technically,
Mhm.
or like a peer at school or whatever, if you are forced to be in like a group project with them or something where you have to spend time with them. And luckily for us, we all liked each other, so that turned out well. But yeah, it was just like I got to know them so that if I didn't have those 2 weeks, I think we still would have been great friends, but it would have maybe taken longer. And I think that was the right move on their part, just to get us all comfortable with each other. Because I think by the end of those 2 weeks, I trusted them with my lives. Honestly, just being able to chill out and trust them completely was such a helpful tool for me as an actor to sink into the scenes and all that fun stuff. So
Mhm. And that obviously probably helped with like chemistry and filming and stuff like that. So did that relationship help with like the different harder scenes that you had to shoot?
Certainly, yeah. Luckily, more of the harder scenes were saved for the end of the shoot. So a lot of the stuff, like in the sewers near the end of the movie, was also at the end of the shoot.
Hmm.
Um, and especially those scenes where, like, like the scene where I'm in the sewer and I'm crying and whatever after the near death thing.
Hmm.
Um, that was like a really tough day, but being surrounded by all my friends made it a lot easier. And yeah.
And what was it like? I saw they built like this whole sewer system cat
Mm-hmm.
like set thing. And what was it like shooting there?
That was really cool because before we actually filmed there and before they filled it with water and stuff, they had it on the sound stage and we were able to go on and just like explore it. And we didn't have like a map or anything, so we were just like wandering around what felt like real like dark tunnels and stuff. And like I think I have a few videos on my phone of us like exploring it for the first time and whatever. And it's just so funny because it's like we just got lost and it was a fun time. But filming in them was really cool as well. Just seeing everything running, like the water was actually very clean, obviously, and it was warm, which was weird, but it was nice. Um, and especially the big, I forgot, we call it the cistern, but whatever, that big room with all the toys and stacked,
Hmm.
that was really cool to film in because it was this giant. I mean, it's what it looks like in the movie. So um, that was a really cool space to film in as well.
Hmm. And you said in a few places that you aren't really like a big fan of horror. So
Mhm.
what was it like shooting a horror film? I mean, was it scary at all or?
For me personally, it wasn't too bad. There were not many scenes. Like I didn't get like a moment where I think on Alien they did it. So like, the actors didn't know where the xenomorph was going to be. And then, oh, and they're wandering around and then they were just going to capture that pure essence of being scared. Like you can act like you're scared, but then there's that like actually, oh, I didn't expect that kind of like face that you can pull and like they'll
Mhm.
do that to actors sometimes. Luckily, I didn't have to go through that, which would have been cool, but um they weren't too bad for me. They pretty much told me what was going on the whole time, so there was no need for me to um, be actually scared or anything. But definitely the atmosphere was very, very much there, so that was fun.
Well, I heard that you didn't, was it true that you yourself didn't get to see Bill until later in the process, or?
Yeah, I didn't. It actually took a while for me to um, see him because they wanted to hold off and be like, "Ooh, you won't get to see him until whatever," and then this happens, and that was a fun reveal because we didn't see him until the scene with the projector. I think was like the first time we really saw what he looked like. I think there
Mhm,
was that image that they released, but I think that came after. I don't really remember exactly.
mhm,
But having that exposure for the first time, that scene and that projector scene is our initial reactions to seeing it. Obviously, a little overplayed. Um, that because if I saw that, I would be like, "Ooh, that's creepy." Not as
mhm.
bad as it is in the movie, but yeah, that was it. It was definitely a helpful tool for me as an actor.
So what do you think about clowns now?
I'm kind of fine with. I haven't been around too many recently, but
Mhm,
like one that looks like Pennywise, I'd be fine. But if it was one that I was not as familiar with, I think it could still scare me.
mhm. And let's talk about your character a bit here.
Mhm.
How do you think Stanley fits into the group? Like, what do you think his role is in the group?
I think what was my answer for this? Because I struggle with this one sometimes, but I think the way I see it is he's kind of like a pillar of the more like a hidden pillar of the group, and he's someone who supports them. Not um, maybe it's not super like obvious, but he is very much someone who wants the group to stay together, not only for himself to have those friends, but he also wants the best for everyone else. So I think that role is really um, I don't know. I don't know what I would call that. Everyone cares for the group, but I think he takes it an extra step, if that makes sense, and he wants the best for it. I feel.
Mhm. And you said that when you were younger that you would be seen as like an old soul a lot. And do you think that applies to Stanley?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he definitely acts like an old soul. I think he's very timid and nervous, but I think he is very much an old soul because I was called that all the time when I was young, and that was funny.
And would you get called that now, or is that kind of gone away?
I'm a little older now. I think people are more see it as mature. You're
Mm-hmm.
mature for your age or whatever, and that fun stuff. So no, I don't. I don't think I haven't been called that in a long time. So I think my days of that are over.
And you said that in general that like working on it was one of the best summers of your life. And what made the movie so fun in general?
Well, it was like summer camp, but like you're filming a really cool movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was literally that, and I had that amazing group of friends that I'll always call friends,
Mm-hmm.
and just having that alongside being able to do what I love, which is acting, and working with a bunch of amazing people behind the camera as well was incredible. And also being in Toronto where we filmed it, it was like a new city for me. So it was just like, wow, I get to be in a new city. I get to explore this new city. I get to work on this awesome movie, and I get to be with these amazing people. So very much I got super lucky, and yeah, I would definitely consider that one of my favorite uh summers ever. I think the best summer ever for me.
I think that's a perfect segue to the next more like general questions that I have for you. And
Absolutely.
what do you like most about being an actor?
Uh, hmm. It feels like natural for me, I think,
Mhm.
is one part of it. It just feels easy. I don't think I could do like stage acting though, like or not yet at least. I'm not super comfortable with that yet. But certainly it feels natural for me, and especially when I get in that like zone. I know like athletes kind of have that thing, and I'm not calling myself an athlete. I'm not saying that, but there are times when I'm saying my lines, but they feel like my words,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to portray someone else and tell someone's story
Mm-hmm.
is a really cool feeling that I don't think I'll ever get sick of. So yeah, I'd say just being able to tell stories and portray characters and people in new lights and all that fun stuff would be why I like it so much.
What do you find the hardest about acting?
um hmm, I don't know. I think maybe for especially at the beginning and sort of for the past few years, um I would say maybe just like getting the role.
Mm-hmm.
It is so hard to get through all those stages of auditioning and all that fun stuff to get to where you want to be. And so sometimes, it takes a while. Like
Mm-hmm.
between it 1 and it 2, I did not have a single job. That was 2 years of just me auditioning and auditioning and auditioning and all that, and I didn't get anything. And my latest role was I filmed 2 years ago again.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a little bit of a different situation because COVID, but it's hard when you don't get to do the thing you love all the time. You don't get to be on set when you want to be there all the time. You have to audition and prove yourself and also get lucky, because even if you are the best actor in the world, you may not look like how they want you to look like, that happens all the time. So I'd say just having that perseverance can get hard sometimes, and definitely you just have to, I don't want to say stay true to yourself, but you have to be very confident in who you are and your skills and ability. And I'm someone who self-deprecates a lot. I'm someone who is not super confident in myself. So being able to be that way about myself, be confident and say, I am good at this is hard for me, still is. Um, so staying true to yourself, I guess.
Well, how do you yourself handle the rejection? Like, how do you handle that?
I do what I do best and I forget. I have been taught this from a young age, but it has been incredibly helpful. The idea is you go into an audition, you prepare your best for it, you put so much time into it, and then once you walk out of that room, you forget about it. It just goes out of your head. It should be gone, because then you're not thinking about it. You're not caught up like, oh, I wonder if anything happened with that, or oh, I wonder. You're not like thinking about it too much. It doesn't disrupt your daily life. And then when it does come back, you're like, oh, wait, I remember doing this one. That's cool that I get to move forward. And then you don't have to think about that rejection, which maybe that's not for everyone, but for me, it works very well. So,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, that also has snuck into just who I am as a person. I'm very forgetful. My
Mhm.
mom will remind me to do something, and it is not in my head. So that happens all the time. But yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions here, and then we'll transition more into like the open Q&A. But I really do want to ask you some questions about I'm not okay with this because
Go ahead.
we covered it. So let's
Yeah.
cover this now. What was the audition process like for that?
For it was. Wait, do we?
We're talking about I'm not okay with this now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did I answer that question?
Different
Sorry,
Stanley.
my apologies. For I am not okay with this. Yes, that one was very interesting because I went in just with the casting director, and I did like 3 scenes, and I was in there for a while because she really wanted to get it right, the casting director,
Mhm.
um, and just like make sure that what we were sending off to the studio was like hopefully what they wanted to see.
Mhm.
And like a few days later, they were like, oh, you got the part, by the way. Or actually, Sophia called me and she was like, I'm going to be working with you. And I went, oh, okay. um, and then I was off to shoot in like 2 weeks from that day, which is not normal. They do not usually uh, cast someone or audition and cast someone and ask them to come out in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
So they had to do all the contracts and whatever really quick. But that one was super crazy because again, it was like you go in, wait a few days, and then boom, you're moving on to do a project in the next few weeks, I was like, oh, okay, I'm totally down for this, but this was so unexpected, you know?
Did you have time to prepare for that role, or were you just thrown straight into it?
Kinda. I mean, I got all the script for all the episodes and stuff and read through all the scenes, and I was like, okay, I understand this show. Um, but we had like a week of pre-production, week or two of pre-production on that one as well. So I got to talk to, you know, all the other cast members and Jonathan, the director, on what he wants Stanley to be, because
Mhm.
he is so different from what he is in the comic and all that. So find understanding what he wanted from me as an actor and how I could play Stanley. So I would say I had good time. It was quick, but it was enough time for me to know what I needed to know.
Mhm. And you said that one of your favorite aspects of Stanley is that he doesn't care what anyone thinks and that he's just like himself to the fullest. And have you ever struggled with being yourself? And did Stanley help you with that at all? Or
Sure. I mean, absolutely. There's been plenty of times where I struggle being myself. I I find that I don't like to, or specifically more around now and maybe then too, but I don't like to. I'm very shy around new people. I'm not like super like forward and whatever. And I can act like it. I can say nice to meet you and whatever, but you know, there's still a part of me that's like I like hiding from people, and
Mhm.
um, I feel like Stanley is the complete opposite of that. He is incredibly open with who he is, and if you don't like who he is, who cares? You know, he doesn't, and I gotta respect that because he just wants, you know, he's fine with the people around him only liking him for him, if that makes sense. And he gets those people rather than just, you know, getting a bunch of people with like being fake and whatever. And he just likes the people who like him, if that makes sense. And he loves himself. So he just likes liking people, I guess. And I gotta respect that.
Mhm. I'm gonna ask you about one more question here. So
Sure.
you're shy. You said you're shy, but you do have more followers, and there are people in 18 states. And if you added up the states of Delaware, New Hampshire, and Vermont combined, you have more followers than there are people there. So what's it
Really?
like? Yeah, what's
Wow.
it like knowing that there are that many people looking at your account and following you and keeping up with what you're doing? Does that impact how you post, or is it stressful at
Yeah.
all?
Um, Thank you for putting that into perspective. It's hard to put that number into perspective, but I think that did a good job. So thank you for helping me wrap my head around that. But um, yeah, I typically I don't really care about what people think on social media. I'm
Mhm.
kind of just fine not, you know, I I like messing with people too. So it's like just putting something weird out there and people are like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "I don't know," all that. But I think that's also why I find myself being a little more quiet on social media now.
Mhm.
I I don't like to, as much as I did before. I don't like to publicly share my life. I value privacy and being able to live my life without a lot of people watching because I feel that feels weird to me. So
Mhm.
um, transitioning away from social media, like I don't have Instagram on my phone, I don't have Twitter on my phone. Um, and just kind of living my life just without having to be like, oh, I should post this and I should do that feels a lot better for me
Mhm.
personally. So yeah,
Does that help you get into character when you're since you're not on there all the time when you're working, obviously. Does that help with that?
sure, absolutely. The less distractions, the better when you're acting. So being able to stay away from, because it's weird. You're also like playing a character when you are putting yourself out there on social media. You're not your true self. You're just like putting the perfect version of yourself out there. So um, you that's like another character you're kind of playing, if that makes any sense. But
Yeah.
you know, focusing on playing one character is also very helpful.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I will open it more into a bigger Q&A now. So if you have questions, if you could send them to Casey through the chat, and then we will just let you know when you're going and stuff if you want to do that. And yeah.
I was curious how being an actor like influenced the way you interact with media, like when you're watching work that you weren't a part of, or like see an ad on TV. Like, how does being an actor impact the way you consume media?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's similar to any other art that someone may get extremely familiar with. I know, like, artists will see stuff differently than someone who doesn't do art. Like, my mom is a painter, and when she looks at paintings, she sees something that I just plain out don't see. And that's very true for my profession as well. And looking at movies and being like, how did they do that shot and whatever. I find myself doing that a lot and thinking about um, a lot of behind the scenes things and how stories work and the structure and how natural things feel. I tend to really think about stuff more, and that doesn't ruin my enjoyment of the movies personally. Sometimes I can turn my brain off. Like, I can turn my brain off and watch The Meg or Hobbs and Shaw and have a blast. Like, I'm totally fine doing that as well. But when I'm watching a movie that I'm invested in, and sometimes I'll forget that I'm watching a movie and that magic is still there. It's kind of like, you have magicians, and when they reveal the trick, the magic is gone. But for movies, I don't think that's necessarily true, because there's so many more. There's so many. Is that right? So many more applications that film can have, and just how someone creates a film. So yeah.
Cool. I will ask you another question we have here.
Sure.
What actors have influenced you? Any roles or movies or things you can think of off the top of your head?
Actors specifically, recently, I watched, or well, not recently, I guess it's a few months ago, but it feels like recently. I watched The Boys on Amazon Prime, and one of the actors, I think his name is like Anthony Starr. He plays like this kind of evil Superman guy, and he is so ridiculously good. He has definitely become one of my favorite actors of this era. Is like, he is so good at playing that role, and I don't know. It's just something, he is so with the character that when you watch an interview with him, when he is just like talking with the press or whatever, and he has his, like, I think he's Australian or something.
Mhm.
Um, and in the show he has an American accent, so like that obviously also changes how I see the character. But like, oh my god, I was like, who is this guy? This is a completely different person. It is so magical how he ropes you in. So I think him, um, he's at the top of my list right now.
And how do you think acting from a young age has affected your day-to-day life? Yeah.
I feel like maybe for me, I've had to work with adults a lot more. So I would find myself being, I would find it harder for me to talk to other people my age, not because I'm like, oh, it's whatever, they're not mature. It's not on my part. I mean, it is on my part, but it's like, whenever I try to talk to them, I'm like, I just don't, I feel like, I feel like I don't understand them.
Hmm.
So it's like, sometimes I'll be like super totally not, I'll be very awkward in a situation like that. I think I'm kind of growing out of that, but um, working with adults a lot more on set really made it weird, because then I would go back to school and be with people my age, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm not an adult. Like, why am I trying to act mature? So I think that has definitely affected me, but not as much obviously when as I get older, but
Hmm.
when I was younger, absolutely.
And how much improvisation, there you go,
Mhm.
do you do during scenes when just in any
Um,
scene, I guess?
yeah, it depends on the project. It depends on the character. Um, so for it, I didn't really do that much. I didn't really do a lot. And it's not because of the project, but it was more because of the character. Stanley is not one to make those sarcastic remarks or whatever, but um, and there weren't too many scenes where we conversed that were like outside of the script. Um, but for example, with I'm Not Okay With This, there were a few moments of improvisation that I did. on there. I don't think a lot of them made it in, but it was just fun on set to just say whatever. And um, I definitely annoyed the director a lot with some of the stuff I did. So I had a lot of fun doing that. But yeah.
And speaking of I'm not okay with this, what was your favorite memory from filming? If you think
Um,
of one just off the top of your head.
top of my head, I would say when we weren't filming, it was my birthday. We went to this resort called Nemacolin for like the weekend just to celebrate my birthday. And we had a lot of the cast members go with us and we got to stay there. And it was so fun. And I think it ruined our workflow for the rest of the shoot. I think the director marks that as the downfall as the rest, as our like, our work. What word am I trying to think of? Work.
Low? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess just that workflow and our politeness and attitude on set did not improve. So yeah, no, it was fun though. It didn't ruin the show at all, and he just finds that we were a lot less responsive, maybe. But yeah.
And I'm gonna shift topics here. Okay. How does it feel to be young Star-Lord slash young Chris Pratt?
I kind of forget about it all the time. I feel like when you're young, you find yourself playing a lot of like young versions of people,
Mhm.
which was funny because for it they had to cast like the older version. Very, um, that's not very common. So that was like, ooh, I'm so it's so cool. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It's like I don't look like him anymore, but when I was younger I did, and it was like, oh, I'm young Chris Pratt. Oh, that's so cool and whatever. But at this stage now, it's like, oh yeah, it feels more like a role now than just playing young Chris Pratt. But young Star Lord, hey, I'm a part of the MCU. That's pretty cool.
We have someone who is curious about your education and how you've managed and thought about high school, college with acting and everything.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I have been balancing acting in school since I was young, and more, I guess, middle school, high school was tougher because I would get pulled out of class a lot, so my mom could drive me to an audition. Luckily, my school was super fine, super cool with that and all that. So um, I would have to notify them the day before and be like, "Hey, I'm leaving early at this time, by the way," and let my teachers know. And they were always super great about that. But yeah, at this stage, I don't have any plans for college. I'm off to work this summer, so hopefully the work is consistent. But I I just want to work, you know.
Mhm.
That's all I've got on my mind right now, and being able to invest myself in that. And at some point, I might find myself going to college, but um, I would prefer to work at this stage of my life. So hopefully, I can get that consistent work and do what I love.
Are you working on anything currently that you can tell us about? Or are you not allowed to tell us about that?
No, yeah, I have a few independent movies lined up this summer, and the first one is called Stay Awake, and it's this great film, or great. So far, it's a script, so I don't know yet, but the script was amazing, and it's about the opioid epidemic in like Ohio and the Midwest, and I'm really excited to film that one because it's kind of a heavier role than I've done so far. So working with some good actors and a director who's been very nice to me so far, and I'm really excited to work on that one. So yeah.
And you're working on the new Beatles movie. Are you yourself a Beatles fan?
Not as much as other people would be. Um, I don't know their entire discography, but I do like their music. Um, and yeah, it's just this. I guess I would call it like the director. It's not like it's kind of a true story. It's like the Beatles stayed in a house near him when he was young,
Mhm.
like younger than I play in the movie. So it didn't really happen, but like it's kind of like like a fantasy almost, if that makes sense. So it's like, what if he spent the day with John Lennon, like that kind of stuff. So it's like that's what the movie's based upon.
And how has COVID affected your career?
Yeah, that was weird because the show had come out February 26th of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and then a few weeks later we're obviously in lockdown. And what sucks for me at that time was like I had a bunch of meetings lined up with some people at companies and whatever, and um, all that, because the show came out, it got a lot of buzz, whatever, and people were talking about it. People were all that, and then COVID hit, and everyone's inside, and no one knows what the fate of the industry is at this point. Everyone's like, oh, no one wants to film anything right now because no one has the guidelines. It was like that. It was like at that point at the beginning of the pandemic when I'd say we're a little I don't know if a little more comfortable now is the word, but like we're a little more used to it.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in our homes for over a year, and the guidelines are a lot more clear on that stuff. So it's like it was that beginning phase of COVID where the show came out, and then all that momentum that I was kind of having from that just like stopped, and which sucked. But it seems like no, it's not. It seems like, but you know, that doesn't mean the show goes away. You know, it's on Netflix. People can still watch it. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So um, it's weird because it sucked, but you know, you kind of have to deal with it and you have to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And have you shot at all during COVID, and has that been different than no?
Not yet. I mean, I will in a few weeks, but not yet. No.
So what kind of aspirations do you have in the years ahead in the industry? I know that you said in an interview that you want to maybe direct or write your own short films. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, at this stage, I kind of just have my eyes on acting. I would like to get more involved with the behind the scenes process because I find that super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously doing directing and writing and all that is that is quite the ambition. But at this stage, I think now that I think about it a little more, I just kind of want to focus on acting and building that path for myself, and just feeling that out. And then eventually, yes, moving on and working more behind the scenes and creating something for myself, because, you know, the cool thing about this industry kind of is that you can, if you don't get what you want, no, that's not right. What I'm trying to say is like, you can write your own stuff, you know, you make your own stuff, especially in today's day and age where you can upload stuff on YouTube and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You can get picked up by anyone. And so kind of if you have that motivation and if you have that skill and if you show people that, they will notice. So it's really cool to live in an era where people can put stuff out there and be recognized for it
Mm-hmm.
at such young ages as well. So I mean, that's the same for like a lot of industries. And you know, another example would be like music, with how people can put their stuff on SoundCloud and people will watch that and companies pick that up. It's the same for like directors and filmmakers. So it's really cool to be able to be in that industry or be in this time where people can do that. But yeah, at this stage of my life, sorry, I kind of sidetracked, but at this stage of my life, acting is I'm totally good with just that for now.
Perfect. Thank you to everyone who came today. And
thank you.
yeah, thank you.